Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. We begin the evening diving right into breaking news. There are ongoing riots over in the United Kingdom, and these are riots. So to explain right at the beginning, so you don't think that we're CNN or other various networks out there with very convoluted standards, at least as they were back in the 2020 era, regarding protests and riots. A protest is when people get out into public and loudly chant or express solidarity with one or the other thing. However, when the crowd becomes violent, when punches are thrown at police officers or other law enforcement, whenever there are individuals who break or damage a lot of property, it becomes a riot. That does not mean that the riot is right or wrong. That doesn't mean the protest is right or wrong. There is no inherent value in just protesting being amazing or evil. No. And in this case, the riots in the United Kingdom are absolutely justified. Here you can see, if you're watching the live stream, the moment that the protesting, the chanting and the yelling, which began today with shouts of, quote, "I can't breathe," which is what Henry Nowak had said quietly to police officers as he was bleeding out from being stabbed. Here they were chanting that this afternoon. So the moment that it became a riot is when, after the police officers started shoving these individuals off of the streets, Producer Allison in Indianapolis, you might keep your finger over the dump button just in case. But you can see it has become a riot, and it has not slowed down since. So a very good time over in the United Kingdom. Now, what is all of this about? This is about the murder and then the assistance to the murder by police in the United Kingdom of Henry Nowak. So this horrifically tragic case highlights the severe breakdown of law and order under the current system in the United Kingdom, in which an innocent 18-year-old student was brutally murdered by an individual exploiting what would be a religious exemption in the United Kingdom to carry around a 21-centimeter blade in public. So this is not the ceremonial Sikh knife that is supposed to be, or is often seen by those who are wearing them around, that those who are Sikh carry. This is a different knife, but was being passed off as one to get around regulations and restrictions, because in the United Kingdom, if you are claiming some special religious exemptions and you happen to be a skin tone that is not white, then the British police are ordered by various departments in various shires and polities around the country to just allow the individuals, for cultural reasons, to violate the law in the United Kingdom. And here, we'll just break it down right into the timeline of the events so that you can know what is going on. So at approximately 11:30 p.m. on the day of the incident, Henry encountered a man by the name of Digwa. So this individual was on Belmont Road. According to the judge's sentencing remarks, he said, quote, "In Belmont Road, you and Henry passed each other. You claimed he deliberately barged into you." And what we then find is that the individual, this Digwa character, then stabbed Henry. And then the police were called. And during this particular, scuffle, Digwa moves toward Henry, says he's a bad man, grabs his phone. The only other witness to this is Henry, so it's not really quite known exactly what occurred. But here's what followed. The judge believes that the physical struggle started because Henry believed that his phone had just been stolen from him, which, by the way, is not unusual in the United Kingdom, in all of continental Europe. In fact, in a couple of cities here in the United States, if you have your phone out, it is very likely to be stolen, oftentimes by a migrant from the third world. You don't have to like that. You can call it whatever adjective you want to call it. That is the core solid facts. The number of migrant-based phone theft and pickpocketing that happens in major and minor towns in the United Kingdom are plentiful. They are constant. Now, during the scuffle that followed, Digwa deliberately stabbed Henry in the chest. Again, this is according to the judiciary.uk site from the judge's remarks. Quote, the blade passed upwards through soft tissue between the two uppermost ribs, catching a lung and cutting an important vein behind the collarbone. This was to a depth of 8 centimeters from the skin surface. The consequent bleeding then flowed into his chest cavity. Then Digwa stabbed him again and again, twice to the upper leg and once to the lower abdomen and groin area at the front. Henry's face was also slashed with the dagger. So there are now 4 knife wounds, 4 blade wounds that Henry has suffered, and he is on the ground. Digwa then, quote, continued to make films of Henry's suffering, ignoring much of his desperation at being stabbed. Digwa responded to the judge that hadn't happened. So then what occurs, Digwa's brother calls 999, that's the 911 for the Brits. Here is how that 999 call went. This is played later on media.
Police emergency.
Yeah, we just been attacked by someone racially. Yeah, this.
Right.
He just attacked it, took it to start. Sorry? Huh? Sorry, we just got attacked racially by some white person.
So Digwa's brother calls the police and says it's this Henry guy that's running around stabbing people as a racist. So again, Henry, there in this particular instance, mobbed, swarmed, attacked. It's horrible. It is a truly, truly evil and horrible situation. Now, what is it that Henry actually would end up dying of? We'll get to this in a second. It's most likely that he died of drowning in his own blood. So when he says, I can't breathe later, which is what you're going to hear on the body camera footage, after this accessory to the crime called in a fake police call saying that it was Henry who'd attacked, like just had walked around and then I guess shouted, this is MAGA country. And so the original brother, Digwa, stabbed Henry in self-defense and stole his phone. Okay. Is disgusting in and of itself. Unfortunately, though, it gets much, much worse. So sometime before police arrive, Digwa's mother removed the dagger that was used to murder Henry. So Digwa's mother runs up and, you know, like you do for your babies, your kids, takes the murder weapon and hides it. So her sentencing, by the way, is scheduled for July 17th. Now, this brings us over to the body camera footage. The police arrive on scene and things get, again, much, much worse because in the UK and in other Western European countries where they're so progressive, they are told, well, you shouldn't just assume that, you know, that you need evidence for a racist crime. In fact, anytime that a brown or a black person, again, this idea that all brown people are the same, there's, you know, 3 categories of people, black, brown, and white, otherwise known as good, and evil. And the idea is that the police showed up, said, hey, this guy attacked us and was racist. And so this is where we get to the police. They show up on site.
My dad's
go to the house.
He's fallen from there and he slipped from there.
There's other shoes left over there, mate.
So a bunch of migrants surround the cops and start telling them, pleading with them, that it is Henry who has acted racially. There you see Digwa's brother, right then and there, the guy who called in the police, called the fake one, faking this nasty story to the police.
I grab on my head.
Are you injured?
Yeah, I've got swollen eye, little bruise.
Alright, just step back a little bit for me. Someone flag these down.
And there, lying on the ground, bleeding to death, drowning in his own blood, is Henry Nowak.
Alright, let's get you out of there, shall we?
I was in bed, asleep. Whenever we just find me up there, look, someone's attacked me.
I can't breathe.
Grab his other arm.
Help. So I've just come running, we only live on St. Denny's Road. I've come running around the corner.
What's happened to you, alright?
Been stabbed.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate.
That is one of the most bone-chilling, evil statements issued by a police officer. So Henry says, I've been stabbed. And the cop says, quote, well, whereabouts, mate? I don't think you have. And then they cuff him. While Henry is bleeding, not just from one stab wound, as some of the other media outlets that have finally been dragged kicking and screaming to reporting on this story seem to suggest, he is facing 3 stab wounds and 1 slash wound across the face. And the cops will now wrestle him to the ground, encouraging and exacerbating the bleeding, making them an accessory to the murder. This is going to be important because the Hampton police later tried to lie about this. Radio crew, I'm sorry, we have to send you over to the commercial. We're going to continue some of this on the live stream. And again, some of these updates on the riots as they come in. It is the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, to continue here, what you have is a group of migrants. Well, excuse me. I should clarify here. Digwa was born and raised in the United Kingdom. There are other individuals that are surrounding Digwa at this particular point in time who are migrants. But you have a group of migrants and then Digwa and his brother, no longer his mother, that are surrounding the police and that are saying over and over and over and over and over again that the real committer of the atrocities here is Henry Nowak. And the cops cuffed Henry Nowak as he's bleeding to death after the cop says, well, I don't really think you have been stabbed. Because again, what's been reported is that Digwa's brother claims, hey, it's actually Henry who's attacked all of us for being brown or something.
That's what, and then you've got nothing, I want to keep you up.
Hand.
I can't breathe.
Put the hand in the cuff, mate. Yeah.
This is like times this has happened to us. You've been walking the park.
Can we get a round one?
We've had people racistly attacked. Nothing happened.
He's saying he's been stabbed, so
Where
let's
is it
just
you
check
think
him.
you've been stabbed?
He hasn't been.
In the face? Oh no, but we have to check, don't we?
So finally, a good 30, 40 seconds later, while Henry Nowak is dying from his wounds, finally the female police officer says, well, he said he's been stabbed. We have to check, don't we? Horrible, horrible. Then, 10 seconds later, Henry utters his very last words at about 1:55 seconds into this video, quote, please, brother, I can't breathe. And then the officer reads him his rights.
Right.
In the face?
Just get these back off, get their details and that, and I'll keep hold of them.
Please, brother, I can't breathe. Yeah.
Should we
Right, keep you on your side, mate.
2 minutes and 40 seconds into the video, like way later than this, they finally call for an ambulance, and it's the female officer who calls for an ambulance. So there was no contact, there were no statements for days and days, and the outrage grew in the United Kingdom. Finally, the Independent Office for Police Conduct issued a statement to the BBC in which they confirmed they had finally started an investigation into the actions of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary. The prosecutor said that Digwa chose to make videos of Nowak fleeing and took close-ups of him lying on the ground. We don't actually have that footage yet. A horrible, horrible, disgusting situation. The sentencing did not get any more justice here. Digwa was sentenced to 21 years in prison. And there are a couple of things that have come out of this as far as some question as to what's going to be done to the officers. So far, absolutely nothing at all. Henry Nowak's father criticized, and understandably, criticized the ruling from the court and also how this investigation had been carried out so far.
Henry did nothing wrong. He was one of the kindest, friendliest, and most inclusive people you could ever hope to meet. He was amazing in every way. Henry did not die with dignity. He did not die with the care he deserved. He lost consciousness before anyone believed him. Let me be absolutely clear. We hold Vikram Digwa solely and 100% responsible for the brutal murder of our son.
Now, that's where he jumps in with the but. And that's going to make all the difference, because what's going to follow are a lot of really piss-poor statements from the UK government. And that brings us over to a series of Homeland Security and immigration committees in the United States today, because this is all wrapped up in the exact same thing. We got to bring the radio crew back in. Don't go anywhere. Tons to tackle this evening. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Henry Nowak, who was stabbed on December 3rd, 2025, at around 11:30 p.m. in Southampton, England. Finally, 6 months later, finally, after a sentencing, we start after, again, and there has been about a month and a half of outrage from a number of individuals on the left, right, and center throughout the Western world over the bizarre cultural politics and rule of law and order in Western countries that try to suggest and appease anyone out there based on racial hierarchy. The idea is that immediately, whenever there was a crime, if there was a white person involved, they were immediately suspect, they were demonized and called evil and racist and whatever. And if there was ever a brown or black person involved, then automatically they are granted moral virtue and wonder. And if there was an officer who ends up putting his knee on Derek Chauvin, an officer puts his knee on George Floyd's neck, and the autopsy report reveals that he died of drug overdosing, well, then clearly Derek Chauvin is some deeply horrible, awful, evil racist. But when Henry Nowak has been stabbed several times, and Nowak is lying there bleeding to death, as several individuals stand around him making fake calls to the police department saying that Henry was being racist or some other nonsense because he didn't like having his phone taken from him. That, well, I mean, the cops should show up and arrest the guy lying on the ground bleeding to death because he's white. After all, he must be wrong for that reason. Now, the anger from the population of the United Kingdom has continued to climb. Again, we're tracking some of the riots that are occurring right now in the United Kingdom. Henry's father, again, lays the blame solely at Digwa, who committed the stabbing. And then he says, however, a but is brought into the second clause. That's what I want you to see here.
Henry did nothing wrong. He did not die with the care he deserved. He lost consciousness before anyone believed him. Let me be absolutely clear. We hold Vikram Digwa solely and 100% responsible for the brutal murder of our son.
But
Henry should not have died on the streets of Southampton in police custody. The way he was treated was inhumane and degrading.
You see the same thing in the rest of the country. In the rest of the world, especially in Western countries, whenever there is a clear pattern of behavior that is considered disgusting and evil, if law enforcement addresses the crime and the behavior, things get better. If law starts taking into cultural accounts and hold on, we gotta wait. I mean, there's really a lot of issues here and there. Then things start to get worse. In the United States, when individuals pointed out a series of fraudulent crimes that were committed by individuals of a certain culture, and the patterns continued with individuals of a certain culture coming into the United States, molesting the United States aid system, and sending money back to Somalia or living high on the hog by taking advantage of autism programs, Medicaid programs, feeding children programs. Well, then individuals who noticed are called racist for noticing. And it is not something that can stand. The center cannot hold. Now, this is yet another problem, as though the political side of this is not the most important factor in the case. But the politicals did finally get involved. Keir Starmer has finally issued a statement in which he has blamed knife crime, as though that's the issue. It's the knives. Oh, man, I mean, it's just that people have access to knives. That's why Henry Nowak was stabbed. And then again, the brother of Digwa said that it was Henry being racist, and that's the problem here. So Keir Starmer says, this is an awful, shocking case. Henry's loved ones have gone through the trauma of a long trial and endured, blah, 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 blah. Finally, it's this cycle of tragedy by tackling the horror of knife crime. I have a lot of knives. I have never felt the need to stab people because I do not exist in a culture. I was not brought up and raised, and I am not adherent to a culture that just goes around stabbing people. I know, crazy. Civilization. What a concept. Now, he came out with another clip because people are ready to roast him over the open fire, as well they should.
Henry Nowak was a kind, thoughtful, and much-loved young man. And this has understandably been devastating for his parents, for his family, and everybody who knew him. And I have seen the body cam footage. It's harrowing.
Oh, it's harrowing. That's the problem. No, it's evil. It is evil. And it is perpetuated by those who have said, you know what's more important than law and order and justice and the United Kingdom or France and whatever republic we're on by now? What's more important than Germany or the United States or Canada or other Western nations is inclusivity and understanding that we're a home for all people, whether or not they subscribe to the same values, to the same morals and ethics and culture that built your country. And that realistically, what we need to do is take all of these extrajudicial steps to somehow make reparations for some nonsensical perceived griefs. And that brings us over to why the United Kingdom is in a much worse off place. There is a conservative party in the United Kingdom that is completely and utterly worthless. And there is also a reform party. Nigel Farage, a lot of other statements made it clear that, and we'll get to the Hampshire police, here in just a second. But Nigel Farage made it perfectly clear. He said, quote, "This is the most shocking footage of discrimination that you will ever see. A white boy being handcuffed by police officers, more concerned by an accusation of racism than an act of murder. This must be a turning point. White lives matter too." Obviously making a point that if black lives matter, if brown lives matter, white lives matter too. And there's nothing at all controversial about saying that. There's nothing at all controversial about saying, hey, by the way, when cops show up and there are a group of individuals who say, hey, I'm brown and this white kid was racist to me, maybe the cops should look for evidence or ask before assuming that the white person must be guilty. That would be the point. That would be the obvious understanding here. The leader of the Conservative Party in the UK, Kemi Badenoch, made this statement. Not that what happened was evil, not that the UK is in cultural decline, but that it is Nigel Farage who is at fault here for saying that white lives also matter.
Nigel Farage said today it should be white lives matter. Are you making the same point?
It should be everyone matters. It should be everyone matters. We should not make this about Nigel Farage. This is about Henry Nowak. And I listened to his father, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. And this morning I watched that body cam footage, and I just kept thinking, what if that was my boy? That his last moments were spent in handcuffs. He knew he was dying, and he could see the confusion, his attacker claiming that he had been a racist. It's an awful, awful way for anyone to die.
So this idea that she's bringing forward, everything, it's all terrible. We should all stop and think about how everyone needs to come together. A lot of hand-holding, maybe some kumbaya. The thing is, it didn't work. It didn't work. And playing this mamby-pamby middle-of-the-road game where everyone suggests, well, let's not hold on here now. We need to remember, quick, get out the paintings of everyone holding hands. Everyone, we need to stop. Nope, absolutely not. And the West will continue to fall as long as there is this idea that if you are accused of racism, then therefore you are allowed to be gutted and lying in the street. And those who claim to represent you will make excuses and talk about other people making statements and always speak about all lives, everyone stop. I understand it's very uncomfortable to say that maybe perhaps in the UK there's a group of brown people, maybe a group of black people that really don't like the white people. And I know people are talking about rape gangs, and maybe that's true, but really, have we all considered about having a coffee, maybe some tea and a biscuit, and thinking about how we're all friends? That isn't working. That's not doing anything. And the people of the United Kingdom, who include black people and brown people and white people, are tired of the Eastern cultures, the honor cultures, that have brought absolute disgrace and trash and rape and violence and murder to a culturally protected sanctuary in Western Europe. Radio crew, we'll catch you guys on the flip side of things. We're going to get into some of the police nonsense and then to some committee discussion here in the United States that's directly related to this. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, the DIG was also issued a family statement because we have to have this thing now where after there is an individual who just so happens to be brown or black that murders a young white guy, whether it's at a high school sporting event here in the United States or whether it's, out in Southampton in the UK, the family of the murderer has to get out and issue a statement for some reason. I don't know why. No one really knows. We got to issue a statement. So here's their statement, quote, "The loss of a young life is a grief that no family should ever have to carry. We are deeply sorry for the pain and the suffering that the Nowak family has had to endure," which is why the mom ran out and hid little bitty baby's knife away. They're so sorry. Oh, no accountability, just honor culture. No objectivity, just honor culture. We love Vikram. We will continue to love him. The love does not stand in opposition to the sorrow we feel for the Nowak family. Both are real and both will remain with us for the rest of our lives. We would give anything to turn back the time to the path of the whatever, so that Henry and Vikram never crossed that night. Oh, not that our son, gutted the young man. Again, didn't just stab, wasn't just I'm walking around with a knife and Henry just happened to fall of it. Stabbed him 3 times in different locations, slashed him across the face once. We cannot change what has happened. We just hope that no further pain is caused in its name. Oh, Hakuna Matata. Oh, the past is in the past. Oh, great, excellent. And then, quote, we apologize to the Sikh community for our son's actions, which have unfairly brought the community into disrepute. We ask that this tragedy is not used by anyone to inflame division or hostility towards any community. And that's the key problem. They don't actually apologize for the actions. They don't actually apologize for the culture that they raised their son up in that brought forward that problem. Instead, it's, well, we really apologize that we brought dishonor on the family. We brought dishonor on the community. We brought dishonor on the whatever. Nope. That is a disgusting, ridiculous, and may I say, quite frankly, retarded frame of mind. But speaking of retarded, the Hampshire police are also being roasted, and deservedly so, because they just lied about the incident entirely. This has now been deleted. On the 28th of May, they say, quote, our officers were misled at the scene, including denial of weapon use. They quickly switched to life-saving aid within minutes, but as laid out in our statement, the medical evidence shows that the injuries were not survivable. By the way, not true. According to the judicial statement, the judge said it looked like, based on Henry probably dying, again, likely, not proven, from drowning in his own blood, that he could have been saved. He absolutely could have been saved. It appears as only one lung was punctured. He could have been saved. He wasn't. A very sad case. Our thoughts are with the family. And people very quickly pointed out, you are liars. You are absolute liars. You didn't quickly switch to life-saving aid. Henry said, I'm stabbed. And the officer said, I don't think you are, mate. They've been roasted fully, about talking about, we're really going to fully cooperate and act on any findings. No, the body camera footage. There has been one officer that has now resigned that is supposedly unconnected with the case. And what is the Hampshire police upset about? They're upset that some of their officers have received threats. That's not very nice. That's not gentlemen. How could you possibly been misidentified and subject to death threats? Now, that brings us over to some committee stuff in the United States. Believe it or not, this is directly tied, because over here, there are a crew of Democrats who are making it all about the individuals who, well, we shouldn't, demonize a bunch of non-English speaking individuals here at home. So what if they don't speak English and they cause a bus accident where a bunch of women and children die, or semi-accidents, or, brutal, violent murders and rapes and human trafficking in Nebraska? Well, we got to bring the radio crew back in. Don't go anywhere. More to cover. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
So in the meantime, the United States was getting into a series of appropriations committees. Now, up front, for those who are joining us for the first time here on Tuesday, June the 2nd, to be perfectly transparent with you, committees, whether they're in the House or the Senate, they exist for one reason and one reason alone: political theater. All right, there are a lot of people in Washington, D.C., Republicans and Democrats alike, who want my job, who want to get in front of people on camera, and they want to throw some spicy punches and make a little TikTok video and look really cool and fancy. And that's why there's a bunch of cameras that are pointing at them. Closed-door hearings don't get nearly as much attention, although there's often far more interesting things that are discussed in them. And the committees that were set up today were not supposed to get that spicy. They were appropriations committees, which means it was a conversation regarding Secretary of Homeland Security Markwayne Mullin, a Senate Appropriations Committee about the DHS fiscal year 2027 budget request. Yeah, I know. Boy, sounds like a real page turner. And then Secretary of State and Acting National Security Advisor Marco Rubio was to meet with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on a State Department 2027 budget request. Are you excited yet? And then finally, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche with a House Appropriations Committee on the Justice Department's 2027 fiscal year budget. So these things aren't supposed to be that spicy, but what the Democrats have done, and we talked about this yesterday on the show, is they have decided to make, for some ridiculous reason, unconscionable to those of us with an IQ over single digits, they've decided to make immigration and crime cornerstones of the midterm election cycle, which is bizarre, very bizarre, because according to every single poll, from Harvard Harris over to Morning Consult, all the way from Harry Enton's polling program, all the way over to Scott Rasmussen, Democrats are not trusted on crime or immigration whatsoever. And you would think they'd focus on the economy, maybe a little bit of foreign policy. No. So in the first of these committee fistfights on C-SPAN 1, C-SPAN 2, C-SPAN 8, the Ocho, and Corncob TV, we get Secretary of Homeland Security Markwayne Mullin getting right down to brass tacks because he knows it's going to be a fight. They know it's going to be a fight. He's a lot calmer than Pam Bondi or Kristi Noem. There's not a lot of taking earrings off and Jasmine Crockett standing up and asking people questions. Mullin gets right down to business and makes it clear that in the United States, where laws are being upheld, if you are going to call immigration customs enforcement agents and cops Nazi, fascist, racist, whatevers, and members of the KKK, and all of this other ridiculousness that incite violence against federal officers trying the same crap that they're doing over in the UK that has now led to this pushback from the people of the United Kingdom, we're not going to tolerate it.
When you throw out reckless terms and you start referring to our agents as being dangerous, unconstitutional, and lawless, that's why our agents' death threats are up by 8,000%. I know that's not what you want, but your political theater, that's what it causes.
The man's correct. The man is, in fact, very, very correct. Now, he got into it a little bit with a couple of senators, but to be clear, Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, one of the best of the bunch, the man with quite a bit of that old Southernly wisdom that we all long to find from a dear old Baptist in the neighborhood. He asks the upfront and honest question that a lot of Americans already know. Most of you already know the answer to, but nevertheless, it is important because it is a deeply crucial question at this point in time. Here you go.
That's correct, Senator.
Isn't it? Last question. I know. Has it been your experience that most cops, most Border Patrol officers, most ICE agents will leave you alone unless you do illegal stuff?
And the senator's time has expired, so if you can keep this quick.
That is absolutely correct, and they love doing their job. They don't do it for the money. They do it because they're called to do it. And regardless if you're a local PD, you're a sheriff, you're state, or you're federal, all of them are willing to do their job because they feel called to do so. And you're not, for the most part, there's always a few bad apples, but for the most part, those officers, unless you're breaking the law, they're not going to bother you.
Okay.
Now, to be clear, in the next year, when you see a lot of the body camera footage coming out from federal agents, if, by the way, I don't often offer, just rote advice to, federal officials. But in this case, because I know that someone from the Department of Homeland Security regularly tunes into the show, I'd like to say, do everything in your power to make this body camera thing happen as quickly as possible. Because just like after 2020 in George Floydism, once the body cameras started showing individuals acting as many cultures are wont to express, then Americans' opinion on those things shift dramatically. Nevertheless, you have individuals like Chris Murphy, senator from Connecticut, the California of the East, going all in on the "you're all Nazis" and running concentration camps garbage. This about Delaney Hall in New Jersey, where they've all been yelling and screaming and throwing feces over the last week.
Let me ask you about what's happening in Delaney Hall. You said that detainees are protesting there because they want their, quote, ethnic food. I have 3 official letters that were sent to the administration from about 300 detainees.
By the way, did you catch that, though? Did you catch that? There's the subtle, you're just a nasty, mean, racist white person, and you think that the only reason that people want immigrants around is so that they can have their ethnic food. That's not according to Republicans, at least most Republicans, my dear sweet friends, that is in fact the Democrats on the left side of the aisle that show up to protest and say, well, who's gonna pick the crops? Who's gonna cook in the Mexican restaurants? Who's gonna clean my hotel room? Who's gonna clean the hospitals? Who's gonna work in the canning plant? That's not Republican. And there are a few corporatist Republicans who are saying, well, all these farmers can't afford regular labor. They got to, somebody's got to do the picking. But for the vast, vast supermajority, it's Democrats making this case. So that little offhanded remark, again, UK style, all these white people believing that everyone is just around for that. Yet they are the ones on the left that are calling for these things. Anyway, he's going to get to his letters and petitions and excitement.
It won't shock you that there's no mention of ethnic food in these letters. These letters allege that there has been spoiled food, delayed medical treatment, sewage backups, undue pressure to sign deportation paperwork.
I love that, undue pressure. You're not here legally. Just get out of here, and we might even give you money. Go, leave. You're not supposed to be here. Why do we even have to clog up the courts? Look, there's a lot of people around here. You're not supposed to be here. I know it, you know it. You got an order of removal. Get on out of here. Undue pressure, as though they're waterboarding people at Delaney Hall. And by the way, if the Democrat side of the aisle weren't clogging up the immigration courts and holding things up with every single lawsuit from here to the beautiful statuary hall, then, maybe things would move through a little quicker and things wouldn't be so overcrowded. Anyway, here's Mullin's response.
Madam Chair, if I could submit these letters for the record.
Without objection.
Nowhere in these letters is a demand for ethnic food. They describe pretty horrific conditions. This administration has defunded the ombudsman, the independent office that used to exist inside DHS that would do an independent investigation of claims like this. Can you just tell us, if you're taking these claims seriously, these allegations seriously, and looking at them, or whether you've prejudged this to be, as you stated, about a demand for ethnic food? These seem pretty serious, and it seems like you would want it.
So since the history of that facility being open, not one single health violation has been written. In fact, just recently, the state of New Jersey's health inspectors went in. They didn't find one single violation.
Oh, gee, what an absolute surprise. I had this situation today, actually. So just as a clarification, when you get into midterm time, there are some candidates, there are those running for office and strategists out there who really start, I think the phrase is feeling their oats a little bit. They start getting a little cocky, and then things start to get rather fictitious and imaginative. And they start claiming the same kinds of, oh man, there's this white people running around being racist everywhere, and the ethnic food, and people are dying in concentration camps. Unless it's Chris Murphy talking about China and the Uyghurs, and then, shh. But other than that, then I have, as my normal job, I'm the national correspondent for the Daily Signal. During the day, I go on TV, and I often square off with someone from a different outlet or side of the aisle. Today, I had one such treat, as it is in fact Tuesday, and there was an individual who started doing the same things, started claiming that all Republicans were lying about all these details and produced all of these lovely sounding Democrat successes that they've had. And when I asked her to provide me some receipts, give me some specific details, silence, crickets, nothing. What you see Mullin here responding is, here's what the health department said, not magical anonymous letters from Graham Platner's Kick account, but instead, like actual details. New Jersey Health, they didn't find anything. Gee, wow, what a surprise. Radio crew, we're going to send you over to the commercial break. We're going to get through a couple more Mullin things on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
But if you compare it to what the state prison system is, state prison system, they have 3 prisons that are in deplorable conditions. Quote, that's what the health inspector said. Delayed health care is average of 32% delayed within 48 hours. We have more health. We have 2 times. No, yes.
Are you doing an investigation on these allegations?
Are you in? Someone else just wrote an anonymous letter that said, there's poo on my feet. And like, what, we're supposed to stop everything? We're just after the New Jersey, I don't know how the Jersey Health Department be clearing things. I know New Jersey has a reputation, but come on, folks. Certainly the health department, when they looked through, they kind of looked for anybody with poo on their feet. It's not like San Francisco where we only clean it up if President Xi of China's coming to town. Now, there were a couple of other, lovely, fun, spicy things. Patty Murray of Washington, who is one of the biggest idiots on planet Earth, it did the same kind of routine. Oh, who are you negotiating reforms or not? Again, it's the same old, tired garbage. Here she is.
Recently talking about legislation to require judicial warrants, restore training standards, and protect sensitive locations from raids.
Okay, so she has just listed a couple of things, none of which are federal law, by the way, right now. And the Department of Homeland Security never said they were only going to follow judicial warrants because that's not Supreme Court precedent here in the United States. Administrative warrants count because immigration is not a matter that goes through the United States civil court system or the United States statutory law system. It's not. It is an external affair of the United States. That's why the Department of Homeland Security coordinates with the State Department and a certain wing of the Department of Justice. Not just your average, neighborly, everyday judge that's trying to smuggle people out of the back of a Milwaukee courtroom.
But while you and Tom Homan say you've made some of those changes, the American people haven't seen the proof of that. So I want to ask you today, what are your current training requirements for agents? Training requirements.
Thank you for the question. I want to remind the senator that I was part of the negotiating those reforms, and I think you're aware of that. So I actually know what happened
I know you were
during
not
those.
in the room, but I do know you were aware of them.
No, I was very involved in it.
But you were not in
back
the room.
and forth. No, I was.
So what she's trying to do, she's trying to get a rise out of him, and he says, "Look, you weren't a part of this. You haven't been in the rooms. No one trusts you with this. I'm going to move on." Now, to be clear, that is how you handle these particular individuals. And this was probably one of the lighter hearings for today. So you get a little of this. It gets really, really spicy regarding the other two individuals. Secretary of State, acting national security advisor, chief capital architect, violinist on Saturdays, coach of the Miami Dolphins, future emperor of Cuba, probably one of the best popes that we've ever had, Marco Rubio, also went before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee today. And we got into some really spicy stuff. So a couple of things. And this brings us once again to the evidence side. This begins right up front with Pakistan. Jackie Rosen of Nevada tried to do the same type of, is it true that you're evil and bad and awful and all of these other things? Rubio's response, pretty stellar.
This is why I was shocked to see that you were at a party with President Trump in Miami instead of accompanying Vice President Vance to Pakistan for negotiations.
What party was I at? I was at a party?
It's publicly reported, and there's photos there.
But what party?
Oh, it's publicly. He calls her on the carpet and he says, "Hey, what are you talking about? What does she have? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing." You're going to see this in a bit because he calls her out on the carpet regarding this before kind of giving an assessment of Iran, an assessment of Cuba, again, some of the other things that we do need to get to in the news side. And then we finally get, after that, we're going to bring the radio crew back from commercial. And then we will have just enough time before a lot of these polls start closing to cover Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, a little of Chuck Schumer having what appears to be a panic attack on camera, Graham Platner crapping all over Democrats' chance of winning in the midterms in the Senate side. We got to bring the radio crew back. It's the Tony Kennett Cast.
It's the Tony Kennett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So now, after all this time, while we're dealing with a number of other issues in an appropriations committee meeting, Jackie Rosen has decided now is the time to try to tackle Marco Rubio over allegations of being at parties and being, not doing his job. The American people, according to every piece of available polling data, do not see Marco Rubio in the same way that they see every single other member of Trump's cabinet. Marco Rubio is the most popular member of the Trump administration for a number of reasons. And this is where Jackie Rosen is going to make some significant mistakes.
This is why,
as we played on the live stream, all the radio crew was in commercial, she begins by telling Rubio, well, it's widely reported that you were at a party. And Rubio says, where? Jackie Rosen doesn't know the answer. That's a bad, bad start, Bob. She continues, and it really doesn't go well for her because she runs out of time. And in committee land, that's not supposed to happen.
accompanied the vice president in the negotiations. Even Iran's foreign minister was not there, yet you were not, was there, excuse me, and you were not. I just feel that's embarrassing for us, and it's embarrassing for you.
Got the school marminess, we got the Karening.
So, Mr. Secretary, Congress represents the American people. We have the power to confirm who represents America abroad. We confirmed you to be our Secretary of State. We confirmed you to be in the negotiations that are happening. And it's just unthinkable to me that you are missing high-stakes negotiations or that you're not involved. It's sad.
Senator Rosen, your time's up.
So let me
Senator Secretary Rubio.
You're 100% inaccurate and 100% wrong. Here's why. Number one, the Vice President of the United States was there, and he wasn't confirmed by us, and he was elected by the American people. Okay? He is the second in line to the presidency of the United States. He was present. Mr. Witkoff is the president's envoy for negotiation for peace deals. Mr. Kushner is a private citizen that serves as an advisor on these functions. They were the team that we sent to Pakistan. I was not at a party. Where I was is next to the president. Because in the midst of those negotiations, I was in communications with them. And in fact, I think there is media reporting from that evening on how on multiple occasions I went into a back room, I came back out and spoke to the president and was constantly updating him. On that evening, I spoke to Mr. Kushner and our negotiating team and Mr. Witkoff on at least 6 occasions, including twice on a secure line from the phone they had access to over there.
So Jackie Rosen steps out and spends a ton of time saying, why are you so bad at your job and you're not in Pakistan and negotiating and holding hands and taking trips? Rubio makes it clear. He said, look, I know your staff does all of your work for you and you wanted to make a little TikTok video where you're all special and exciting. You don't understand how this job works. And he calmly and clearly articulates to her why she is dead wrong. And this is going to become really important here in a second because we are getting reports right now that the Iran war may be going very hot right here, right now. So we'll let Rubio finish his statement here.
So you don't know what you're talking about. You're just
Senator
making
Rosen,
stuff up.
he has the floor.
I know your staff wrote up this cute statement for your TikTok video, but it's not true.
Oh my gosh. Incredible. I know your staff made a little video for you, but you're stupid. Is one of the top tier line. If you can deliver something calmly, passionately, sure, but in calm, clear, concise manner, and then deliver a haymaker, you're in very, very serious trouble as the Democratic Party. Now, we're going to pivot in just a second to some possible coverage on the United States and Iran exchanging what is a little bit more than tit for tat in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz here in a couple of minutes. To finish up, I do want to give an opportunity for Secretary Rubio today to deliver a blunt assessment on the Iranian situation. That'll be a great pivot into this. For those who are just now joining us, it's the Tony Kinnett here on the Daily Signal. I know we're near the end of our broadcast coverage on the radio and TV side. That might be changing. Here's Secretary Rubio making it clear today what the current status of the Iranian military and especially their Navy is.
Today, there is no Iranian Navy. There is no such thing. There's a bunch of Boston whalers with machine guns on them, but there is no Navy. There is no Iranian Navy. It lies at the bottom of the ocean and will soon, within a number of years, be prime fishing spots because they'll turn into reefs.
There you go. So we do have some information that is just now coming in. We're waiting just a second to get a couple of clarifying details from some of our sources over in the Middle East. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also made it very clear that the United States viewed Cuba as a continued sponsor of terrorism and as a failed state. Here was the Secretary Marco Rubio today.
I would say that Cuba is two things about Cuba. Number one is it's a failed state. I mean, it really is. I mean, the model that they have economic will never work. And it will never work because the country's no longer even controlled by the government there. I mean, the people are under the control of the government, but the country's under the control of a private, I say private, a military-controlled conglomerate that controls about 70% of the GDP of the country, none sitting on $18 billion in assets. None of that money transfers over to the Treasury or to be helpful to the Cuban people in any way. Meanwhile, they have power plants that have been failing because of years and years and years of chronic mismanagement and lack of investment. So on the one hand, you have a country that doesn't have money to buy fuel, and on the other hand, you have a country that is sitting on a military conglomerate that has $18 billion in assets, and none of it transfers over to the Cuban people. A lot of people don't realize it, and they're accountable to no one.
This is a series of statements made by Marco Rubio that very clearly and articulately outlines, at least as far as the United States is concerned, a series of goals for the Trump administration. This is something that the Trump administration has been leaning more into, where President Trump will just pitch it over to Marco Rubio, and he will clearly and concisely outline the goals of the United States, their view in regard to foreign power. He made this very clear as far as the nation of Venezuela is concerned 5 months after the United States went down and grabbed Maduro from his lovely night surrounded by Cuban special forces, and now the country's trajectory is a lot more positive.
Yeah, first, I think it's important to remind, I think tomorrow will mark the 5-month. I know it feels like it was 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 months ago. That's how long we've been into this process. So let me say, Venezuela is not today where we hope it will be for the people's of Venezuela's sake. But it is on a trajectory that I think is a very positive one if it continues, and it has to continue. As you said, our first priority was stabilization. We did not want to see mass migration. We did not want to see a civil war. We did not want to see societal breakdown. And that required working to the extent possible and wise with existing institutions, not to preserve them or to perpetuate them, but to ensure that we didn't have systemic breakdown.
Now, I want to make sure that I do this correctly. Again, of course, the secretary is correct in that assertion. We have to shift away from our radio and broadcast coverage per Federal Communication Commission rules. We're going to continue on the live stream and pivot right over to a breaking alert on the United States and Iran. Looks like things are getting hot again over in the Strait of Hormuz. So radio crew, you can catch us over there, youtube.com/Daily Signal. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast, nationally syndicated on the Daily Signal and first on 93 WIBC. Sorry, guys, some of those rules I have to follow very, very closely and carefully. All right, that said, I think that the radio crew and the TV crews are faded out. And as additional reports come in, we are now clear. I have to do this alert sound, as silly as this may seem, very clearly and particularly. Here we go. All right, here on the Tony Kinnett Cast, we have an alert as that sound triggers several of our radio and TV syndication partners to begin post-coverage with us after their broadcast times for breaking news of considered national importance. That being that the Iranian situation between the United States and other Gulf states, along with the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps forces, appears to be kicking up yet again. According to a statement from U.S. Central Command in the Middle East, as well as a series of intelligence reports that are currently streaming out of the region, the United States military carried out what are called, quote, self-defense strikes on Iran's Keshem Island. That is one of the Iranian islands along the Persian Gulf and close to the Strait of Hormuz, before Iran launched a series of missiles at U.S. military installations in the region. So far, this includes a confirmed series of targets in Kuwait, burning shrapnel reported raining down on Kuwait, that due to lower atmospheric fragmentation. Essentially, the rocket failed. It may have been hit by an interceptor. It may have just failed entirely. The ballistic missiles towards other regional neighbors include possibly Bahrain as well as Saudi Arabia. It's unclear at this time if one of the intended targets of this Iranian series of strikes includes the United Arab Emirates. The Emirates have, of course, over the last couple of weeks carried out a series of smaller airstrikes against several Iranian targets. A couple of Saudis have as well. We're getting a couple of details here. We're going to make sure that we get everything right here before we deliver some of this information to you, again, over on the live stream side of things. One other clear point here, producer Daniel getting this clip over to us. The U.S. forces stationed at the Ali al-Salam Air Base in Kuwait. You can hear the sirens as missiles be a-flying. That's a THAAD defense battery activated. Now, it's unclear at this point what retaliatory action the United States is taking after what are called these self-defense strikes in the region. According to the IRGC, in a statement provided by the Islamic Republic News Agency, this is one of the state networks, said that the United States had struck a ship attempting to run the blockade. That's not clear based on any transponder information that we have at this time. This could be some type of a false, casus belli to suggest that the Iranians have justifiable cause to fire some rockets. Then they follow up by saying the IRGC responded by attacking a ship in the Strait of Hormuz and then said that the U.S. bombed Qeshm Island, and therefore the IRGC responded by attacking Bahrain and Kuwait. So the Iranians have rejected any kind of ceasefire by the United States. There is a car that has been seen crashing in response to, I guess, somebody not exactly paying attention at the wheel. So we'll try to pull that clip up here and show you some very spicy and interesting things happening. Again, if you're just now joining us, this is the Tony Kinnett Cast on the live stream side, youtube.com/Daily Signal, as well as some of our radio and TV broadcast partners who have maintained coverage with us outside of the normal broadcast hours. This breaking news develops. The United States and Iran appear to be exchanging missiles and potential drone strikes in and over the Strait of Hormuz, including attacking several missile and drone strikes on the Persian Gulf and Qeshm Island on the Strait of Hormuz specifically. So there would be the THAAD battery from a different angle we saw earlier. So exciting things, exciting times happening over there. Again, there is currently in Saudi Arabia a squadron and a half of Pakistani fighter jets stationed in Saudi Arabia, as well as, quote, 7,000 troops of a makeup that we don't quite know, at least as far as the battalion structure, what kind of units are there, whether they're there for, kind of infrastructural defense or they're there, again, it is infantry, mobile infantry, that kind of a thing. It's unknown at the present time. Now, that does bring us over to the statement specifically from CENTCOM, a fact check at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so that is just now 3 minutes ago. Quote, according to a release from Central Command, the IRGC claims that they successfully targeted the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. We have heard this before. The CENTCOM crew is suggesting this is false. Per the release, all Iranian strikes have been successfully intercepted. Right now, we don't have any footage that suggests otherwise, and the reason I would probably lean in that direction, outside of common sense, being that the very first thing that the Iranian state media does whenever they claim that they've struck some type of United States target is they post the footage of that thing happening, and there's no footage of that thing happening so far. The full press release states that the U.S. conducted, again, self-defense strikes on an Iranian ground control station on Qeshm Island after Iran targeted their Gulf neighbors and U.S. bases and infrastructure. Per CENTCOM's release, 2 Iranian ballistic missiles fired at Kuwait fell short or broke apart in flight. Hey, there you go. There's that broke apart in flight. And 3 missiles launched at Bahrain were immediately intercepted by Bahraini and U.S. air defenses. As a quick analysis reminder here, the United States has established what Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has called a red, white, and blue dome, or at least the beginnings of one, is an air defense system over in the United Arab Emirates. And there's no information right now as to whether Iran has begun reducing, targeting the UAE as the United States has set up a heavier defense perimeter there. Don't have any specific instances to confirm or deny that, although that is being speculated, I should say, kind of on the intelligence community side of things. Last but certainly not least, CENTCOM also reports that they shot down 3 one-way attack drones launched at various commercial vessels. No U.S. forces have been injured in the strike. It's also not clear right now what it is that the United States is preparing, but this is in just the last couple of hours in which the United States and Iran have begun trading a series of strikes over the Strait of Hormuz. It doesn't appear right now as though the United States is firing subsequent actions, but it is almost certain that the United States is maintaining a very close eye on some of the coastline in Iran to see if there is anyone planning on firing off any other, missile defense battery infrastructure. The United States has a couple of different ways from both its naval asset groups, CENTCOM just in general, but also a couple of the attached intelligence groups, to track through a slowly restored Iranian internet system, possible control operations groups communicating with the rest of the Iranian regime. It's not clear how the United States identified the operations group or the operations control center, as CENTCOM describes it, for Iranian missile and drone operations on Qeshm Island, or whether this is just an operations center along the Strait of Hormuz itself. It certainly wouldn't be out of the realm of the possible here for the United States to begin targeting what they believe to be observation and communications points from Iran to naval craft trying to make it through the Strait of Hormuz along the Persian Gulf to a series of ports owned by other Gulf partners in the region. And again, that brings us back to a couple of committees on Capitol Hill today. And certainly not in and of the least as far as Secretary, well, I should say Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is concerned, a bunch of arguments over the United States and political aspirations as to what the Trump administration is up to. Because the Democrats have tried very, very hard to run the United States, to run their electoral campaign along Trump's failures in foreign policy. But they haven't been able to make that stick, in part because when they bring Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Acting National Security Advisor Marco Rubio before the Senate, Secretary of Rubio makes it perfectly clear, with very little else here, to be interpreted, again, just to be completely fair, Secretary Rubio makes it perfectly clear, as the acting national security advisor, he's aware of the United States actions in the region. Nothing is being done so far. Nothing is being done, so far that could be considered a series of foreign policy debacles, tantamount to, as Graham Platner would say, being drafted over into the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. And not only is Susan Collins smacking the man in the face over that, but amid all of the other scandals, Republicans are dogpiling on, and rightfully so, Democrats over on the Senate side. So we're going to cut away to the commercial break really quickly here just to kind of reset the clock. And then we're going to dive into the last great hope that Democrats were going to try today, which is a House Appropriations Committee with Assistant Attorney General Todd Blanche. Because when Pam Bondi was in the hot seat, things didn't go so well for Republicans. Now things are flipped. We're going to cover that in detail. And of course, we're monitoring this situation that is developing in the Strait of Hormuz between the United States, Kuwait, and Bahrain, and the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Don't go anywhere.
Good evening, everybody.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So there is truly complete and utter panic in the Democrat side of the aisle right now over Graham Platner. And this is coming out in a lot of ways and shapes. Again, if you're just now joining us, welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. We are keeping an eye on some of the situations developing in the Strait of Hormuz. In the meantime, though, until we have additional news to share, it is also 9 minutes since the polls have closed in New Jersey and South Dakota. So again, we have a lot of lovely, wonderful poll closing and primary stuff tonight. It's a lot of news to dive into. Polls for the New Jersey primary and the South Dakota primary have now closed. We'll bring you any of the information that we're able to find kind of trickling in there. In New Jersey, we're looking at the U.S. Senate primary. Cory Booker is running unopposed on the Democrat side of the aisle. 4 Republicans are competing for the nomination. Robert Lebovix, by the way, I'm going to pronounce names wrong, and that's just, there ain't no help for it right now. So please give me your pardon there. Robert Lebovix, he's a doctor. His quote for his tagline for the campaign is "America First Always." Justin Murphy, a former local committeeman. Richard Tabor, a suspended state trooper, and Alex Zidane, a former News 12 reporter and conservative commentator. That name is known to me. There are no Trump endorsements in this race. Over on the South Dakota side of things, the gubernatorial primary, that of course is closed 10 minutes ago. It's a 4-way race between Governor Larry Roden, he's the incumbent, Representative Dusty Johnson, who I believe we have either had on the show or I did an interview with regarding rancher matters with Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, House Speaker John Hanson for the South Dakota House of Representatives, and then businessman Toby Doden. There are also no Trump endorsements in this race. There's no clear front runner right now. Polling has been pretty volatile throughout. They must hit at least 35% of the vote to win outright. If none of the four candidates reaches 35% in that gubernatorial primary, the top two will advance to, you guessed it, a July 28th runoff. Woohoo! Yippee! Yeah, runoff! Yay! It's exciting. I hate runoffs and think they're really kind of retarded. The winner will end up facing Democrat Dan Allers in November. And only registered Republicans can vote in this election in South Dakota. So it's a closed primary. Now, there's a lot of California primary stuff. We're going to get to that. Right now, Democrats are not focused on California. They would love for you to be focused on some parts of California. They would love for you to be focused on foreign policy matters. They would love for you to be focused on this Department of Justice super duper kind of slush fund accusation thing. But it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is that after some rumors and rumblings yesterday that the Trump administration was backing down from this Department of Justice anti-weaponization kind of reparation fund, that acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is not Pam Bondi, stepped into a House committee today, and there were some lovely, exciting, wonderful, wonderful fireworks. And again, this all will culminate into a pretty fun hootenanny over Graham Platner. But first up, we have the very retarded Rosa DeLauro, the purple-haired, ancient old lady from Connecticut. I mean, just starting things off with a performative, silly garbage. Well, here you go.
An addendum, the second order?
No,
the only thing you're talking about here, so the blanket immunity is not something that you're going to move back on?
It's not blanket immunity. That's not true.
It is.
No, it's not.
Read it. Okay. United States releases, waives, acquits, and forever discharges each of the plaintiffs from and is hereby forever barred and precluded from prosecuting or pursuing any and all claims.
So Rosa DeLauro's match. She's like, there's pardons galore. Again, he's like, I'm the acting attorney general. I know what's in front of me. Can you cite what you're talking about? And she's losing it. The pearl clutching is coming out full force, not handling it well.
Counterclaims, causes of actions, appeals, requests for any reliefs. I mean, this is an order from you, but you're not prepared. You are prepared to say that the president and his family will be barred, are immune from. That's a yes.
No, it was not a yes.
So Rosa DeLauro is saying, you're issuing this that President Trump and his family are not allowed to be investigated ever. It's so corrupt and terrible. Oh my gosh, he's trying to make a big national news story. Nothing there. And Todd goes, no, you cannot read, you illiterate hag. She's like, pearls, quick, get the pearls, the smelling salts. Oh.
I had not answered the question. I can't answer if you want me to.
What are you doing with this?
Okay, so.
Incredible. Representative Madeline Dean from Pennsylvania's 4th, because Ro Khanna was not there to make a fool out of himself, started yelling about Epstein. They're still barking up this tree. It isn't working. American voters are not responding to this at all.
You were paid $10 million to represent the president. You hang a 30-foot banner of the president's menacing face over.
So in private life, you were a lawyer and you represented people? Oh, que sapri. Oh, the horror. You hung a banner of the president's menacing face. Oh, no. Jan from The Office here is just losing it.
For the entrance to the Department of Justice. You said that if you were terminated or not moved forward as Attorney General, you would say to the president, I love you, sir. So I have one question for you. Is your obligation to the victims and survivors of Epstein's heinous crimes and all his perpetrators?
I love this. It's when did you stop beating your wife? When did you stop beating your wife? Because again, it is open. There is an open invitation for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein to come before the floor of Congress, take an oath, and give us the list. Tell us all of these people that aren't being charged and prosecuted. Tell us who is on the list. Who are they? They won't do it. Ro Khanna and Massey said they're going to get out there. They're going to do it. And the only thing that they ended up releasing were the names of those who were part of an FBI lineup who had nothing at all to do with anything, and innocent people got doxxed and threatened because they happened to look like those who were being investigated by the FBI. So when she's like, oh, the victim, oh, who's gonna, da, 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 it hasn't worked. They have no evidence for this. There's nothing there. They can try just as hard as they can, but the leading questions are gonna lead in question.
Or is your first obligation to the President of the United States?
So without a doubt, we want to bring justice to every victim.
When will you bring that justice?
Can I please finish?
Excuse me.
Can I finish?
It's been decades. When will you bring...
Can I finish?
I love it. So he starts to answer and says, to answer your question, yes, and Annie's going to answer it fully because she asked several questions that she asked a lot. She framed it up, and then she asked the leading question. So he says, hey, here's what's going on. She cuts him off because this is the game. It's not actually about a committee where you get questions and answers. It's all for the cameras. So he says, can I answer the freaking question for the love of baby Moses in a basket floating down the Nile? She can't handle this because if he answers, then what do the American people see? Not her acting all high and mighty, you go girl on C-SPAN, the clip that will later be played later all over broadcast television and live stream podcasts, etc. If he answers, then the American people see he's a calm, rational dude who just gets right to the point and frames it up clearly.
When will you bring the justice?
So as I was saying,
when will you prosecute? And who will you prosecute?
Please
allow the witness to answer.
You told me in our conversation you blamed the victim.
Every victim
Let the record
of Mr. Epstein.
Let the record reflect that in this private conversation that we had that wasn't recorded, that he said, I hate you and I want to kill babies, and also I hate the Knicks. And I was like, oh God, no, it's a horror. But that's real special. Thank you so much, witness at the Brett Kavanaugh hearing. I can't just, the horror, the pearl clutching.
Told me that the victims didn't give good names.
Let me be crystal clear that this Department of Justice will always protect victims and will always prosecute anybody we can, okay? Full stop, no ifs, ands, or buts, okay?
There you go. Not difficult. She interjects a ton more. It's nonsense. Again, it's committee fistfights for the camera. One quick correction. Producer Daniel just told me, and I thought something was a little fishy, perhaps. South Dakota, their polls close at 8 p.m. Central, not 8 p.m. Eastern. So little correction there. Not that I think that anyone was out there listening in South Dakota. We don't have a station operating in South Dakota and was like, oh, Tony Kennett said it was an hour later. I don't have to go vote until then. I don't think that's happening. But anywho, to make that very clear, polls don't close for another 42 minutes. 41 and a half minutes in South Dakota. So moving along here, the very last, this is where it brings us all to the doorstep of Platner. Chuck Schumer's last ace in the hole was yelling and screaming and all of this hullabaloo about this Department of Justice anti-weaponization super slush fund. This was his last thing. This is what he had. Again, the man has been tweeting about this for days. And I mean, seriously, he's been tweeting about it for days. He says, well, the only way to stop Trump's nearly 2 million back, this is what he was going for. It does not play out the way that he's looking for because Todd Blanche says this in response to the House committee today. And all of Chuck's midterm dreams faded to ashes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Attorney General, I wanted to ask a few questions about the anti-weaponization fund. We know that the department has agreed to pause this effort until at least June 12th. I wanted to ask what your plans were for the fund after June 12th.
Now, by the way, this is actually a fine question. This is from Democrat Representative Grace Meng. She's a representative from New York. That's fine. No leading question. Hey, this happened. What's going to happen afterward? Fine and fair question. Totally fine. I would love boring questions and houndstooth jackets, to be completely honest with you, to be more prominent in Senate hearings. I find that fine. Let's see what he answers.
So thank you. So look, we're not moving forward with the fund. You're right that there's a date that in the case in the East District of Virginia in June, but we are not moving forward with the fund, period. The reasons for the fund is something that President Trump talked about for a long time, which is the fact that there were a lot of people in this country who had their government weaponized against them. The reasons for the fund, I think, it remain as important as they were before, but we are not moving forward with the fund.
Oh, not moving forward ever?
Correct.
Oh, there's no more fund then?
Well, to the extent...
Yes, honey, sweetie baby, that's what that means. Yes, this plan right now, it's not. You could hear from Democrats in the room, the air deflated, because this is the fun thing. When she asked the question, this is amazing. When you ask a normal question, you often get normal answers. I know. Wow. Right? All of Chuck Schumer's hopes and dreams, all of them, because you think he's dumb. Trust me, he's not dumb. He's seen the crime and immigration stuff rising in the Americans' interest in the polls. He sees it climbing yet again. He sees the sanctuary city nonsense. He sees people aggravated over the state of New York, the state of Pennsylvania, the state of California, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the state of California, issuing commercial driver's licenses to anybody, whether they be legal or illegal, whether they speak English or they don't. And this is something he realizes he can't do. So we had this, well, they're really corrupt angle. This is what he had. This was his last ace in the hole. Now it's gone. And that brings us over to the worst thing that could possibly happen to truly ruin Chuck Schumer's entire ding dong dang day, Graham Platner. So Schumer tries to run out on social media after this hearing because everyone's making fun of him and says, well, actually, Blanche and Trump's words on this fund are worthless. As though Blanche has just said, oh, we're stopping it, but it's proceeding behind closed doors. It's not. I mean, everything has been halted. The Associated Press did actually cite their sources correctly. It ain't moving anywhere. So he says the only way to stop Trump's nearly $2 billion MAGA dollar slush fund and his blank check to commit tax fraud is to abolish it by law permanently. Senate Democrats will force a vote on the floor to end Trump's corrupt scheme for good. He's so desperate to cling to this, and it ain't happening. Why is he desperate to cling to this? Why is this a very awkward and bizarre thing that he has to hold on to for dear life? Like it's the ring and it's Frodo clutching it. No, Sam, I'm not going to cast it into the fire. The ring is my own. Because he knows that what's waiting for him outside of the entrance to Mount Doom is a world of hurt. It is a world of hurt. And it all comes in the form of Nazi tattoo wearing, veteran mocking and hoping for the death of, I don't know how I should phrase that, slanderous and disgusting regarding Purple Heart veterans, admitting to doing crack cocaine in the last 6 years and buying it, chatting with possibly minors online with his profile picture, being him in a towel and nothing else, cheating on his wife, Graham Platner. Oh, let's not forget telling everyone that he pleasures himself in porta potties. And that's what he really pulled out of his military service. So Chuck Schumer, now, because again, as this moves forward, Democrats who were already, they rushed in to say, oh yeah, we all endorse and support Graham Platner. Schumer is now between a rock and a hard place. Not getting any better for him. Here you go.
You have not said if you're still endorsing Graham Platner. Are you still supporting Graham Platner?
As I said, I endorsed Graham Platner. We're going to beat Susan Collins and take back the Senate. Thank you.
I've endorsed, we're going to take back the Senate, and then he immediately bolts. They're like, all right, that's all the time we have for today, bye, because the questions that are following up is, wait a minute, you've had all of these moral obligations to the President of the United States or to Attorney General Ken Paxton in Texas. Why is it not okay for Ken Paxton to have been alleged to have had some kind of extramarital affair years and years ago, but when Graham Platner may have been chatting with minors online instead of, with his wife, all of a sudden that's okay. Well, what's the difference? He bolts before any question can be answered there, as well as a couple of questions all about the meeting that occurred today. Before we get to that though, Chris Murphy, also again from Connecticut, told you earlier on in the show he was going to be popping back up. This is the kind of thing that American people notice. This is why Democrats saying, well, sure, Graham Platner has a few problems, but the real problem is Republicans. Here's why that's not going to work. Not going to play. It all boils down to this longer term memory that Americans have.
I think it's hard to just say everybody should be good and moral. I think you've got to create a set of rules that promote goodness.
So that was Chris Murphy. Again, you can see the Chiron on. This is the $1.8 billion anti-weaponization. Here he is over on CNN just very recently saying we need to establish some rules to be good and just and moral and friendly. This clip provided to us by Western Lensman over on X, stellar account, highly encourage you to follow. Then when we get over to Platner, all of a sudden things are going to change.
Promote the common good. And that's what this book is really about.
Should those rules apply to Democrats too? I mean, do you support Graham Platner even in the wake of all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't followed the minute by minute of what's happened over the last few days, but I do think there's a difference.
I see. Not going to go well. By the way, you don't need me to tell you this. Here's the national polling. Harry Enton makes it very clear. This is the albatross, one of many, that is going to drag Democrats down to the floor. Here was Harry Enton. What is today, Tuesday? Today on Graham Platner.
Really, any path to taking the Senate goes through Maine.
Yeah.
So what are we seeing about the chances of taking the Senate right now?
Yeah, if you take a look, the chance of getting the Senate right now, you go back 2 months ago, it was about a 50-50 split, right? Now Republicans, again, it's close, but Republicans are now slightly favored to take back the Senate, no doubt in part because of what is going on in Maine, which just makes that path, which was already difficult, a little bit more treacherous.
This feels like a Platner tax right now in those overall chances to take the Senate. Really?
That's on CNN. Ruh-roh. I mean, yikes. Like zoink scoop, maybe we shouldn't have run a Nazi. I mean, and by the way, this is seeping into the broader generic congressional ballot. So historically, at this time, in an off or in the midterm year, right? When you have in the middle of the presidential administration, you have the judgment, the rebuke of the president's agenda. We've talked about this for ages. This is supposed to be a mainstay of the modern American political system. You have the president, he's in office, 2 years in, the country flips the Congress on him because it's a rebuke against the president's agenda. Tale as old as time, right? The problem is that Democrats right now, historically, and by historically I mean really to about 1994, they're supposed to be way, way, way further ahead. The opposition party is supposed to be in the generic congressional ballot polling, is supposed to be like 5, 6, 7, 8, upwards of 10 to 12 points ahead. And then things narrow as you get closer to the election. Here we are, it is June the 2nd. According to a Harvard-Harris poll, from May 29th to May 31st to 1,725 registered voters. For the generic congressional ballot, Democrats are at 51%, Republicans are at 49%. That is a red alarm, that just won't quit. And are Democrats dumping Platner? Well, behind closed doors, this appears to be a repeat of the Joe Biden era. So again, as you remember, Joe Biden completely dead. We'll get to Whoopi Goldberg and Joe Biden on The View, and some of that nonsense. But Joe Biden was dead. And Democrats didn't want to admit it in public. Oh, we support the president and his run for re-election in public. But then behind closed doors, what did you see? All of these private House and Senate hearings and private calls with the DNC where they were saying, how do we get Biden to drop out of the race? What do we have to do? Does the president have to be sick for a couple of days and no one's heard from him? Oh, strange. Now we're getting the exact same kind of stuff for Graham Platner in Maine. And there's a reason. They still have a way out of this. Janet Mills in Maine is still on the ballot, as she herself said, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So today, Brecca Stoll over at the Daily Wire was out recording several Democrat senators, including Amy Klobuchar, just hustling their chunky calves right on in. I'm sorry, the chunky calves joke is an old Klobuchar reference from ages ago. Rushing in to, get as much time as they can to talk some sense out of keeping Graham Platner in the Maine race. Here you go.
Distracted you to kick.
There they go.
Senator, are you supporting Graham Platner?
Senator Adam Schiff, you have such a great track record of endorsing candidates. Where are you going?
Standing by him with his kick account? You don't have anything to say to the people of California who've been victimized by predators on kick?
Predator, Platner, Predator, Platner.
And then you have like some yelling and some things. So I'm just going to point it out. Hey, whoops. They're all rushing in there. And anytime you see, Adam Schiff and Klobuchar going in to say that, hey, look, you probably need to drop out, it's bad. It is very, very, very bad. So after we finally get out of this closed door, super secret, behind closed doors meeting, then we get to Democrat Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. And you can just see the pain on her face. It's so great. She doesn't mention Platner. She just says, we're optimistic that we as the party are going to win Maine. Not Platner's going to win Maine.
I'm very optimistic you're going to win Maine.
Senator Gillibrand, do you condemn
What about his personal sort of?
for his parent? I'm very optimistic we're going to win Maine.
What about all of his foibles? What about his issues? What about all of the crap that he's done? What about the scandals? After he got out in front of the media and said, "Oh no, actually, there's no more scandals coming." Oh dear, now there's more scandal. What do you have anything to say? I am very optimistic, but I tell you what, I am so optimistic that we are going to win Maine. Best of luck to you, honey, sweetie baby. Now, what about Platner? Because he was at this meeting. He was at this scourge and trial session, and this man books it. Now Breca Stoll does get one great parting line to him before he gets in his car, in reference to his active profile that was active, by the way, up until about 3 or 4 days ago. So this man, in his campaign, had an active profile on a site, a messaging site, a pseudo kind of dating platform that is known for being a site predatorial to minors. This site is more infested with pedophiles than Habbo Hotel, okay? I mean, and there's no AIDS in the swimming pool to get rid of this one. Kick has a serious problem, a serious issue. Platner, profile in a towel on the platform. So Breca throws a little parting jab to him. Stellar, beautiful reporting here.
What did you say in the race? What did you tell the senator?
Graham, how old were the girls?
How old were the girls? Oh, how old? Hey, Graham, how old were the girls that you're talking to? There are no two better words to say in this instance to Breca's parting jab there than damn fine. Correct. Absolutely stellar. So again, on that particular instance, moving over to some of the primary information right now, again, just 18% of the votes counted so far in the New Jersey primary. Justin Murphy is ahead slightly, 36%. About 19,000 votes in, followed by Alex Zidane at 29%, Richard Tabor, 24.8%, and then Robert S. Lebovics, again, I'm probably not pronouncing those names correctly, sorry about that, is down at 9.7%. We'll try to keep you guys up to date, as we move forward on this stuff. But regarding Graham Platner, here's the fun, and here's why I don't think that he's long for this world. In the campaign world, I should say. I don't think he's long for the campaign world. In an interview with the Portland Press Herald, Governor Janet Mills of Maine said, quote, "People have the impression that I withdrew or dropped out, but I simply suspended active campaigning. Quote, I am still on the ballot." I mean, exciting. Fun stuff. Now, it's bad in a number of regions. On the Michigan side, again, we've been talking about the immigration. We've been talking about the cultural issues. Michigan's El Sayed. This is the guy they're stuffing up. Their Muslim physician who calls himself doctor and a physician, even though he's only ever taught medical stuff. He's never actually been an active physician of any sort. Some might say that's more of a nitpick. I disagree. Anywho, this guy has decided, amid all of the crime and immigration issues rising to the top, despite the fact that he is polling as doing worse against the Republican candidate than either of his two other Democrat colleagues that are currently running in the same race, he's out here saying we got to abolish ICE right down to the roots.
So I'd love to tell you that I'm changing my tune, that I'm saying something different. I'm not. I'm saying the same thing I said in 2018. I think we need to get money out of politics. I think we need to put money back in your pocket. I think we need to pass guaranteed health care through Medicare for all. I think we should abolish ICE. I think we need to get Line 5 out of the Great Lakes. I think that we really can stop sending our money elsewhere and start sending it here.
So first of all, no comment to the numbers of individuals in certain communities in Michigan and Minnesota who are sending your taxpayer dollars back home to places like, Somalia. But anywho, beyond that particular excitement, there are still a host of Democrats that are going all in on the bizarro Pride Month stuff. There are fewer companies this year than ever before that are participating in the big, huge Pride Month shindig. There are some Democrats, especially in the progressive, the squad, the progressive caucus, that are trying to make Pride Month the thing. I know that Tom Steyer up in California, he's going all in on a transgender athlete this dude that competed in women's track and field and won state in a couple of events, as though that's really going to drive people out there. There are precious few companies, though, that are holding to this. Unfortunately, though, there are still a few companies here in the United States that are paying for gender transition drugs and surgeries for their kids through their own healthcare programs. So again, one of the reasons that we partner with the Alliance Defending Freedom is because they are trying to stop this from occurring at any level, at any place. Companies like American Express and Home Depot are still appearing to cover irreversible experimental gender transition procedures for minors in their employee healthcare plans. And of course, you don't need, a super scholar to tell you that means that kids can get puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and life-altering surgeries. And many of the companies that you and I support still foot that bill. This does have to stop. This is becoming more of an anathema in American society, but it's not done yet. There are some things you can do to stop it because some of these companies are publicly traded, which means that many of these companies, if a big enough portion of their stockholder base is against the actions of the company's direction, that these publicly traded companies, if they don't move in the direction to cancel a lot of these things, then the company can be sued and can be forced to stop these practices. That's one of the things that Alliance Defending Freedom is trying to effectuate. This is one of the few times that a petition actually works, because a petition as stockholders or friends or purchasers from those companies, a petition of individuals to those companies, those publicly traded companies, does have a pretty significant chance of stopping some of those actions. So the Alliance Defending Freedom's petition telling much of corporate America to stop covering these procedures means that you have a voice heard by leaders at these major companies whose decision to end coverage for these procedures, that kind of domino effect, ends up impacting other companies across the country. So to participate in this particular survey, this petition, joinadf.com/Tony. That's joinadf.com/Tony, or text Tony, Tony, to 83848. Check that out. Really glad to partner with them over here on the show. And by all means, I highly encourage you to reach out and sign this petition. I've added my name to it for that particular reason, because I like Home Depot. I don't want them to do this kind of crap. That isn't the kind of thing that Americans in the culture and climate are tolerating anymore. Now, last but not least, the severe issue that Democrats are having in this lovely electoral cycle are two haunts that I really wasn't expecting. So first and foremost, Americans have not let go of the Joe Biden scandal since Joe Biden went in front of the country and said that she thought her husband Joe was having a stroke, and then took him to Waffle House and said, "Oh, Joe, you're such a good boy," in front of the country. Just really weird, but here was Jill answering some questions from The View on this today. It's not going away.
And he'd given so much of himself, and to see you even saying, like, I thought he was having a medical episode, I was concerned. Was there any part of you that went into protection mode of like, Joe, you can't keep doing this. Like, they're taking so much from you.
But the doctors told me he was fine. I'm not a doctor.
Gee, all of this time, I'm Dr. Jill I'm Dr. Jill. I am not a doctor. Now, again, it's true. She's an education doctor. But after you go around parading yourself as a doctor, all of a sudden to come out and say, well, I'm no doctor. I have no idea. By the way, there is no spouse on earth that believes truly there is something wrong with their spouse, with their partner. And after the doctor tells you, oh, hey, everything's probably fine, that individual believes them. There is no spouse on earth that is immediately comforted by the first opinion of a doctor, ever. That is not a thing.
I am a doctor.
Yes, you are a doctor.
Oh, I'm not a doctor, but I am a doctor. Best of luck. The last and most excellent of nonsense the Democrats are bringing forward is their big main push. And again, I've told you, Republicans don't really have anything to offer. So all Republicans in Congress need to do is cross their fingers and wait for the Trump administration to get a move on. Because again, we've talked about this, the 5-6 senators on the Republican side of the aisle that are doing nothing in the Senate, just a whole lot of nothing. It's not getting any better. So Democrats actually have to produce something. So Bernie has decided he's going to lead the attack against AI. We're going to get into some more investigations on AI and data centers here in the coming weeks, but I can guarantee you, I promise you here and now, the Bernie Sanders approach to going after AI, this ain't going to work, Chief.
The foundation of AI is based on our collective human intelligence. Our books, songs, artwork, journalism, computer code, scientific research, videos, conversations, images, and ideas spanning generations.
So he begins, and he did a huge 7-minute long video where he talks to the camera, and we'll get to some of that here in a second. He's introducing a big act to have the federal government nationalize AI, because the government having sole control over AI certainly doesn't sound like a nightmare straight from the depths of George Orwell's 1984. But anywho, Bernie Sanders begins by saying, AI takes from human everything. So does every piece of technology on the face of the earth. Every single piece of technology, every single piece of art, every single piece of literature, every painting, every song takes from the collective achievements of humankind throughout all of human history. Now, does AI look at things directly and then manipulate things? Absolutely. And we can talk about IP, in intellectual property. But Bernie just saying that AI is somehow collectively owned because we all produced it? No, you didn't produce AI unless you're one of the people working for the companies that coded this. I don't have a right to tell Microsoft how they design an operating platform. I wish I did, because the current Windows platform sucks. But I don't have a right to tell them that unless maybe I'm a stockholder in Windows and I own enough of the company that there are laws regulating what they can do and not do after telling their investors that they're doing something with the money. Like knowingly spiking the football into the ground and screwing over the company. What Bernie is suggesting here is that the labor, the people, the labor, everyone needs to know that everyone, the people, the labor, the ideas. Bernie, who's never produced anything at all in his life of worth, wants to tell you that he deserves a piece of the AI pie.
The reality is that big tech oligarchs have fed this knowledge into their AI models without permission, without acknowledgement, and without compensation.
Okay, this is something that we need to talk about, and I've been meaning to talk about it for a good hot minute here. Regarding the whole AI has been taking a lot of things. If you post something, now there are cases of AI taking privately owned information and distributing it, absolutely. However, what he's talking about here is just individuals posting to social media. Once you post something to social media, it's out there for good. There is no, Facebook, I don't give Facebook permission to post my... Quit that retarded nonsense. You posted it on social media. It's out there. It's not yours anymore. You don't have the right to take my... You put it on the internet. There is no special magical cyber police to jump in and fix the mistake of you posting something online. As the boomer generation correctly told, the following generations back in the early 90s into the late aughts, once you put something online, it is there forever. Trust nothing on the internet. Those were the two pearls of wisdom that are absolutely, unequivocally, completely true. Completely. And just because millennials didn't listen at the time, and now other generations throughout history, some for good reasons, some for poor reasons, stopped believing that, doesn't make it suddenly true. There is no magical Bill of Rights for online privacy. No. You put it out there, it's out there. And the idea that like what we need to do to fix it is have the government come in and run AI, no.
The creative work of many millions of people, writers, artists, musicians, journalists, teachers, scientists, and ordinary people, has been stolen by the wealthiest people in the world.
There it is. There's the rich versus the poor, except me. I know that I have a vacation mansion. I've never made any money. I've never done anything, but I'm worth millions of dollars. You shouldn't ask any questions. The richest people in your world that produce things, they're the whole terrible, evil people. That's awful.
I will be introducing the American AI Sovereign Wealth Fund Act.
So what is it, the Sovereign Wealth Fund thing? I love that. Essentially, it says this. The government's going to run AI. The government's going to run AI, and the government's going to take all of these capital gains and attacks. So while China and other countries around the world shoot forward and win what is essentially the next space race for the country, Bernie wants the governments to control everything and totally not use it for evil. Wink. No. That's not going to fly. And again, Democrats are already desperate to try and kind of run on the populist issue. And they're already screwing up what could have been an effective argument on the data center side of things. We're going to get into that investigation in the next couple of weeks. But the idea, the argument that the way that Democrats are going to move it forward is by invoking the Terminator argument to turn people against capitalism via AI. Best of luck to you, sweetheart. That dog ain't going to hunt. It's not. They are playing their hand a little too early here. A little too. And again, people are trying to make the case. People are trying to make, the case right now that, oh, well, AI is just going to get worse and worse and worse and terrible. Relax. It's not going to get that bad. Chill pill for a couple of reasons. But I will say this is the last thing I'll leave you with on that point particularly. If the same people who have been wrong about the climate change garbage, about the racism garbage, and about all of the other predictions that they've made are now telling you that, oh, we have to socialisty revolt and, oh, we gotta get your Molotovs and take it from the millionaires and the billionaires. They're wrong here too. So, again, that's not, like a pro tech. I'm not defending anybody at all. I'm not. But just saying so far, if Bernie Sanders thinks he's going to lead this charge, you mean Mr. Economic Populist? Nope. No, not at all. Absolutely not at all. So, that said and aside, when Bernie Sanders is also, making the, when Bernie Sanders is also making the argument that China is working with us on getting rid of AI, and so giving a bunch of stuff over to China. Again, the foreign interests, hilarious and stuff. Just a couple of quick points in response to a couple of the comments. There are companies that suggest you do retain implied copyrights, which they have then scraped without permission. Yeah, absolutely they have. But again, just because a company suggests that you have implied copyright and legal protections doesn't mean that the access isn't out there. And by the way, the best argument against this is fonts, of all things. Fonts, like the way that text looks on a screen. You can't really patent a font. People have tried to. After all, you have to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for fonting. But here's a little fun fact. If you take any font out there and you print off a copy of each letter, you can then say in every court battle, that's why no one's getting sued over font ownership anymore, you can then claim, well, I actually have this printed font out here. You can't just copyright and patent everything. It's causing a lot of issues. It's something that really wasn't set up in kind of the corporate sphere to kind of evolve as technology did, and will eventually be kind of, argued and mitigated in court. But that's another tale for another time. Last point, and I do enjoy this one. Don't lump in Generation X with the boomers. No, I agree. I agree with you. But it is in fact the boomers who told a lot of Generation X before Generation X told millennials to be careful about the internet. That was sourced directly from baby boomer culture, and it is a very good thing and warning that they issued. That didn't emanate from Generation X culture. It just didn't. Credit where credit is due. Again, we love my Generation X audience here, but I gotta be clear with you there on that side. All right, we'll answer just one mail time question just to tide you all over, because I don't think we're going to carry on for the rest of the evening. I do want to give thanks to a lot of the super chats tonight. You guys don't have to do this. So we'll get to the super chats in just a second. One question from Laura Lee says, hey, Tony, I tried to purchase 2 mugs last night. It said that you couldn't take payment on the merch side. Now it tells me everything is sold out. Do you know when you'll have more? Yes. So the Daily Signal Shopify account is currently not operational because we need to fix a few things on the tech side. It's not. There will be a time for the Daily Signal merch and the Tony Kinnett Cast merch and all that stuff. You really have to have it. It's not ready yet. We're fixing a few tech issues. So it's not there. My announcement, I apologize of telling you it's here. It's finally here. The pictures of the merch are there. But you can't order it just yet. I'm sorry. However, that stuff said and aside, we are beginning a giveaway. So the giveaway works like this. So over on TonyKinnett.com, TonyKinnett.com/giveaway, we are doing a little giveaway contest. So if you put in your name, you put in your email, and you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, then you can enter the giveaway to win some free merch. That's right. We'll send you a mug or a t-shirt. It'll be cool. Yeah, there you go. So I think we're going to have 3 to 5 winners of that particular giveaway. And it will be active for a bit. I'll probably leave it active until the end of the week, I'm thinking. So if you want free merch, nothing on you except filling out that form. Cool, sweet, excellent. Go to TonyKinnett.com/giveaway. Fill that out there. There you go. That's the answer to that question. Again, from Laura Lee this evening, right before 8. All right, last but certainly not least, on the mail time side of things, a couple of really great super chats. From Holloway 923, a $5 super chat, very kind, says, I think that Blanche has been a really good acting attorney general. Is there any talk of making him the permanent attorney general, and would he have trouble getting confirmed? Well, it all comes down to whether Tom Tillis is going to throw a hissy fit and not do anything. I think Mitch McConnell would probably push him through. I mean, again, as acting attorney general right now, I'm not aware of the timestamp of how long he's allowed to be acting AG. But as far as I know, I think he's probably the favorite to be the full attorney general. I don't think they're pulling Lee Zeldin from the EPA over to be AG. I think Todd Blanche has just killed it. Man's done an excellent job so far. He has. Every time he's been in front of the camera, again, the number of arrests that have come through, the number of indictments, the number of convictions, cases argued since he's taken charge, excellent stuff. Now, that's not to saying he didn't pull any work over from former Attorney General Pam Bondi. No. But in the particular case of Todd Blanche, he's done an excellent idea, and I think he's probably, probably moving forward, I think he's probably the best choice. Another very, very kind super chat, and I had it. I know I saw it in the show earlier. From the original Jersey Jen, a $2 super chat said, like, subscribe, and then hit the little bell emoji on YouTube. All we ask, folks. That's very kind of you. Appreciate that. That does, in fact, help us an absolute ton. From Kevin Stankiewicz, a very kind $5 super chat, and said, should the U.S. military regime change not Great Britain or evacuate all USA citizens, far-right British, the UK nuke submarines, UK gold, and US museum art? I don't think that that's necessary. Do I believe that eventually if things do get bad enough and we start seeing, the mass imprisonment of, for example, Reform Party officials, which I know they're kind of flirting with the idea of doing, then yeah, the United States should consider running guns to the UK. But I don't think it's going to reach that point. I do think things are breaking. I don't think they're lost for the UK just yet. I think they're on the precipice. I do think it's now or never for the people to do it themselves. So that said, do I think there may be an opportunity for the United States to import refugees from the UK? I don't know, maybe. I don't know. I'm not really hot on importing refugees in any rate at any point. So that's kind of my personal take. All right, that said, I'm sorry the show's gone on an hour and 52. I don't have any other updates on the Iranian situation. We've been keeping an eye on it for you in case there are any other exchanges. We are still, again, seeing riots continue over in the UK. But we don't have any other information here at the time that's like front and center that's new and developing. So that said, we're going to end it for tonight. I don't have any other updates on the New Jersey's primary here at this point either for the senatorial election. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Some of the updates on Los Angeles and California, that jungle primary system, not to mention the election results that we will be diving into over from... I'm going to make sure I have this list here in front of me. South Dakota, Iowa, New Mexico, and Montana. We'll cover that stuff tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's the Tony Kennett Cast here on The Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.